Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I am your host, Tiffany Daniels, and this is the co-host, Mr. Meows. We are going back to that horrible world known as the JRC, but before we get going, folks, a few of the usual disclaimers. All right, you are going to see the link to this article we are now going over right there in the description box, alongside the other pertinent links to the Stop the Shocks campaign, including Autistic Coil's massive archive on the subject, plus, folks, the templates. You know the drill. Sign your name, click on your senator, and the ever-present, self-explanatory, change.org, shut the Judge Rotenberg Center down petition. Folks, when we discuss the JRC, you're going to hear vivid descriptions of and catch clips of surveillance footage of people with disabilities being tortured and abused. If you got young children present, please use your headphones. Should go without saying, okay? All right, and folks, God, fucking today. Fuck today. Fuck it with a sandpaper dildo. Yes, I said it. Fuck it. I'm going to say it right here on video. I love having 89-year-old women curse at me because they don't know how to use the computer. I don't mind helping people who have issues because they're a little older. Being cursed at because they don't know what they're doing and they won't take the alternative, easier route, such as having an agent assist them by doing the order over the phone, is kind of ridiculous. So I'm a wee bit pissed off. I'm hoarse because it's Friday and somehow people would rather call Wayfair instead of going out for the weekend, like, most people. And I'm exhausted. So if I stumble over my words and I maybe go off into a rant of explicitives, my apologies in advance. I do have my calm down tea right next to me. Okay, so where we left off. Let me take a sip of this here. Hopefully it can help me not sound so damn scratchy. That's a little better. I hope that it is clear that my intention is not to suggest the spaces of the theme park and the JRC are equivalent in the way that individuals are subject to control, but rather that I am attempting to explore how and why the JRC utilizes staples of theme park design. This will require an understanding of the history of institutional spaces created in the past to contain and manage people labeled with autism and intellectual disabilities, as well as understanding the design of spectacular spaces such as Disney theme parks. My research is grounded in the theories of Goffman on the total institution, on discipline, docile bodies, and space, Amhead on orientation, and most importantly, accounts from the survivors of the JRC themselves. Goffman, 1961, points out that institutional spaces are ones in which cooperatives is obtained from persons who often have the cause to be uncooperative. I love this guy. Can I say this? I fucking love this guy. I'm gonna read that sentence again. Cooperativeness is obtained from persons who often have the cause to be uncooperative. Thank you. Whoever you are, Guffman, you're my spirit animal. You're my spirit animal right now. Foucault's work on docile bodies has associated me in my exploration of how people who have every reason and right to be uncooperative are rendered docile in part by the physical layout of the spaces that they are placed in. In the case of the JRC, I examine in particular how the space is further and further subdivided through the use of partitioning, which will be explored in greater depth in what follows. I know I read that part yesterday, folks, but I thought it merited to hear it again. All right, methodology. This is a qualitative study applying a Foucauldian framework supplemented with Sarah Ahmed's 2000 work on orientation, Goffman's 1961 writing on the total institution, and work of the historians, geographers, and sociologists writing about the design of theme parks and, importantly, the psychological effects of their physical design. I will be using the JRC as an example of these series in action. Alright, quit. Sorry. This research is text-based and is foremost a study of a North American institution and draws from multiple sources including academic papers, books, newspaper articles and interviews, blog spots, and other testimony, YouTube videos, interviews, proceedings from legal hearings by survivors of the JRC and allies, a report by Disability Rights International, and the website and YouTube channel for the JRC. I also rely heavily upon a series of photographs taken of the JRC by photographer Rick Friedman. These photos have been especially useful, along with eyewitness accounts, to provide the reader with the detailed descriptions of various aspects of the layout and design of the JRC, which looks like me like a fucking horror show on crack. Acid gone wrong. Acid gone very wrong. Bad trip. Bad trip. Foucault's series about power, docile bodies, in particular his discussion of the spatiality and temporality of the institutional spaces, serve as the backbone to the research. As discussed above, I also utilized the work of geographers and others who write critically about modern and historical iterations of themed spaces. Important to this research is assembling and critiquing the literature relevant to institutional spaces and theme parks as to apply it to the specific example of the JRC. I use this content analysis to analyze the information by looking for themes and patterns, and in particular similarities in the spatiality of places of entertainment, theme parks, and spaces of confinement. They're trying... See, this is something neurotypicals do a fucking lot with these programs. They're not trying to make the place appealing to the people who are actually going to be fucking stuck there all day. They're trying to make it appealing to the parents. I want to get at this understanding in the back of your head here. For many of us on the spectrum, not all, but a good amount, a place like the JRC would be sensory fucking hell. That place is my goddamn nightmare. And I'm not just talking about the treatments, just being in that space. Say they were the most, up and up, current programs, place, one of the most progressive places for treatment for autism and other disabilities in the world. It would still be hell because it looks like an acid trip gone wrong. But they're not trying to appeal to me. See, I, as the person with the disability, do not factor into this equation at all. It's one of the biggest problems in the medical and educational models out there. We, the people who have to live through this shit, don't get to have an opinion. So they're not working to appeal to us. They're working to appeal to the parent. So just keep that in the back of your mind while we read through this. The self-contained nature of the JRC also provides a scheduled and highly controlled environment in which the evidence of abuse can continue unchecked. Thus, I also draw upon the lived experiences of those at the JRC who have communicated on social media and other online platforms. Many of these valuable accounts are drawn from autistic advocate Lydia Brown's 2018 JRC Living Archive and Respiratory Project. With an environment that is so impermeable to non-staff members, it has been difficult to get an accurate account of the way JRC functions. In this area, the voices of survivors have been invaluable. The JRC has also granted permission for a number of journalists to enter the center and document their experiences. See Gonnerman 2007, Pickelton 2018, usually under the guise of being sympathetic to the JRC's approach. I draw upon these accounts in my analysis. Fairly late into the research, I discovered a website created by Matthew Israel that provides a virtual walkthrough floor plan of the JRC building. This became very important to the paper. From his detailed description of the offices, foyers, stairwells, and classrooms, I was able to draw a rough and inexact map of the space. While not necessarily accurate in the terms of distance, direction, and ordering of the rooms, this map provided me with a sense of the space. I found that this exercise contributed greatly to my thinking about the layout. Please see Figure 1 to my rough diagram of the space as described by Israel. We'll see that in a little while. This image is not to be used as a floor plan per se. It was impossible to map out the space in that way, but it does allow readers to conceptualize the space and see the way one theme flows into another, and reemergence of certain themes throughout the space. Allergies. Photographs Israel 2001 provides to accompany his written description of the space were equally informative, and these, coupled with my rough diagram, have allowed me to more clearly see themes and ways that the space is used to manipulate and reorient inmates. Throughout the paper, I describe and make reference to this floor plan and to Rick Friedman's photographs of the JRC. I often begin a section with the image description that I use to move into discussing a particular theme or topic. The use of images and diagrams was important by my own understanding of the space of the JRC and of the processes by which power operates in and through the space, and the people within it to direct and orient disabled bodies and minds contained within its walls. Foucault, 1977, Ahmed, 2006. Moreover, I include these images as a way to provoke what Woodman and Weib term the effective impact of images, which have potential to elicit a visceral response in the viewer. Personal communication. As an autistic person who has been placed in segregated spaces for disabled people, the special education classroom, the psychiatric inpatient unit, the spatiality of such spaces is particular interest to me. I hope that these experiences will assist me in thinking critically about space and power. I also acknowledge my level of privilege as a white middle-class university student and my awareness that I have not been subjected to the same level of constant surveillance, control, and containment as the people about whom I am writing. I hope that my identity as an autistic person who has experienced institutional environments will give me insight to what I write about, and will also help me to remain cognizant of the ethical implications of writing about experiences of violence while being comfortably removed from them. Okay, we'll go over the layout of the Judge Rotenberg Center for a minute, but I wanted to pontificate a little more on the point that I brought up a little moment ago. Okay. In my time, in my capacity as the advocacy specialist for my state, there's an ongoing theme that I noticed in every single one. Every single one. And I can tell you what they are. These folks are not trying, especially in young education settings, to appeal to us. We don't factor in. If we did factor in, like what we have going on, let's say we have an equivalent out here. It's basically the polar exact opposite of the Judge Rotenberg Center. It's called a Riverdale School. Rivendell. We have Rivendell down here. That I and a few other self-advocates with autism were a part, not just in building the school and what that would look like and the types of reasonable accommodations in place. We also had a hand in designing the layout so that it was going to be sensory friendly to the students. We weren't just thinking about appealing to the parents. We wanted the kids to be in distraction-free rooms where sensory issues are not constantly popping up and overwhelming them to the point that they can't focus, concentrate to learn. A lot of these places don't, folks. A lot of these places don't. They instead, first off, they go for infantilization. Red flags should pop up for any parent if they walk into a place like the JRC and it looks like Disney exploded and died. Okay? Red flags should pop up. And why? It's one thing if you have a wing in a school that's dedicated to the younger students to have some type of cartoonish kind of draw to it. But when you are housing within your school walls students that are 21, 23, 24 years old, and you're still surrounding them with this garish, horrible, Disney nightmare-esque sort of framework, it's infantilization. It keeps them, it's almost a way of trying to keep them childlike by keeping everything the same, the programs the same from the moment they enter until the moment they graduate, by not progressing into more mature themes as they go throughout the school year as they grow. You see what I mean? We should not have Disney exploded for classrooms that are housing kids 16, 17, 18 years old. At that point, you should be developing rooms and spaces with reasonable accommodations that looks what like a high school classroom is going to look like, to progressively prepare them to come out of the fantasies and love of childhood, to start developing them and coming into adulthood, preparing them for transitioning out of that and into, independence. Like they say that's what they're going to do, like Rivendell does. But no, the whole structure, right down to the very internal design of the place, is used to keep these kids under control by fear and to not allow them to progress. Not really. There is a psychological thing to keeping everything so childish around them. You see what I'm saying? I'm going to close out on that thought. We don't get very many views on this channel, especially on this subject. And the few that we do get do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, please don't forget to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time this evening. And as always, we here at Spilling Tea hope you have a good one. Bye-bye.